Which one of these is better to elevate your tracks? The Woodland Scenics risers and starter kit, or just the plain old foam? So let's find out. I'm Tom Kovichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. And a lot of people have been using foam, the pink foam and the blue foam, like this over here, insulation, doesn't matter which color it is, for their base. They've gone away from the plywood. They might put this over top of plywood, but I've done it with plywood and without plywood. So a lot of people are using the foam for their base and for their mountains. Okay, so how do you elevate your track from one level to another? I'm doing it two different ways just to try it out, and I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm using the foam, and I'll take a 4-foot piece and elevate it 1 inch. And I've also bought these, the risers. I bought the 1/2 inch risers, and I bought the 2% starter kit. Now that gets you started. That gets you up to 1 inch if you use the starter kit, and then a riser, and then another piece of the starter kit. Okay, which one is cheaper? Well, I'll tell you what. This is a lot cheaper. You can get a 4x8 sheet of the foam, 1 inch thick. Right now, last week I went to Home Depot and it was $24 and some change. Earlier this week it was about $21. Okay. I got these two at two different hobby shops, and both of them were about $10 and some change. So you're looking at maybe $23 right here just to get yourself up to 1 inch. And if now you could still use the 1/2 inch risers, stack the 1/2 inch risers to go up higher, but they also make other risers to get you going. But here you go. This is just one set here for basically the same price as what you can get for a 4x8 sheet of the pink foam. I like the pink foam better because it's a lot easier, and let me tell you why. And I'm going to show you a few things that I've did on my layout in the past couple of weeks. I used basswood and foam to elevate my foam pieces to the desired height. Now this is the stock that I already had, and I went to Hobby Lobby to pick up a few more pieces so I could have 1/16 of an inch increments in all my pieces of wood. To start off with a smooth transition, I cut back on the foam just a little bit and raised it up. I placed the basswood squares and a 1x in the appropriate place to bring the foam up to the desired level until I got to the original level of the foam, which is 1 inch. I used a straight edge to make sure that the rise was straight and there was no dips in it along the length of it, all the way up to where I have it at least 1 inch above the rest of my track. I shaved down the area that was less than 1 inch so I could place track base around the curve, adding shims on the top end. The piece of foam in the corner is level. I'd have no shims under it. This is so I could place buildings or other items on this piece. I added more shims for the next piece on each one of the corners, and you can see that I have a piece of road bed on the far end of it just to give it a little bit of a super elevation going around the curve. You'll notice that all the foam pieces are marked where my road bed will be That is because I marked everything out and then cut all the foam pieces to fit in the area that I needed it. Once I had this last straight piece in here, I could determine how much of a rise I would need and then place the appropriate shims underneath to maintain my 2% grade. The next section is my lift out area, so I'll maintain the same height until I get to the other side, which is another 32 inches. Once I was satisfied with the placement and the height of everything, then I started to glue everything down, and I used foam glue on everything here. I have the foam adhesive applied where I'm going to put the risers. And once I put the risers down, I'll put some more adhesive on top of those and put the foam on top of that. I use weights to hold everything down while the foam adhesive dries. The process that takes the longest time of building your model railroad. Once the adhesive is dry on all the pieces, then it's time to add the cork road bed all the way up to where we finish this thing off. You'll notice I use a combination of the wood pieces and the foam in different areas on here. The reason I didn't use the foam in all the areas is I am not that good at cutting straight lines. Now for the section where I use the Woodland Scenics foam strips. The portion that you see where I have an increase and decrease in elevation with the foam strips is about an inch off the lift-off area that I have. Since I plan on elevating the track 4 inches above my main line, I decided not to go with all of the Woodland Scenics pieces and use the 1-inch foam as the spacers to bring my elevation up to 4 inches. Everything you see here stacked up is just a simulation of what it would look like. I'm going to be changing it somewhat before I do my final gluing. Here's an overall view of the back end of my modules where I started the incline. You can see the lift out right there in the center. That is all level, and off to the right of it is where I use the Woodland Scenics. That part of it is still unfinished. I plan on changing a lot of that and use mostly foam. I'm not really satisfied with how the Woodland Scenics thing works, and it's just way too expensive for me. I'll still use a few pieces of the Woodland Scenics where I transition from the main line to the sidings. That part of it was the cork road bed, and I'm going to go straight down onto the foam itself. So the small pieces of the incline on the Woodland Scenics I'll use in that area right there. But the part where the last part that you saw, I'm going to change all that. I have a couple of 4-foot pieces of foam where I'm going to go up the last 2 inches to get my 4 inches of elevation and use spacers underneath it. I'll use the foam in this area since I'll be starting out at 2 inches and I'll be going up all the way to where the 4-inch mark is. So I'll be using the foam there. I'll have to learn how to cut straight so I could get it in there. So that's the way I'm going to be finishing it up. I'm going to tear out that right there, what I did so far, and change it. I got a good idea of where the track is going to go, as close as I can get it to the wall without actually hitting the wall. And later on, it's going to be going across those tracks and going into the center of the train room. So that's my experience with it. It's a good idea if you know, if you don't want to mess around with stuff, but I'd rather go with the pink foam and do my risers that way, get my elevation on the track that way. It seems a little bit easier. Even though you could turn it and go different directions with that things, it's more for the beginners to get them get their feet wet and get an elevation. But I'll let them use that, and I'll use the pink foam to get my elevation on my layout. So until the next time, we'll see you.